The spaceport was loud and alive, filled with the noise of alien voices. The smell of strange spices and the flicker of neon lights. Ships came and went, carrying passengers from 1,000 worlds. Daniel sat at a small corner table in a dim bar, fixing a broken device he had picked up for cheap. He was just a mechanic. A human living among aliens, doing odd jobs to survive. In this part of the galaxy, humans were rare. Some aliens respected them, others ignored them, but most didn't care as long as you paid for what you wanted. Daniel had learned to keep his head down, work quietly, and stay out of trouble. But trouble had a way of finding him that night. He noticed a group of traders sitting at a nearby table. Their voices were low, but Daniel's ears caught something strange. Another shipment failed. One alien hissed, his blue skin shimmering. Under the light, the last human male supplier is gone. A second alien leaned in, his reptilian eyes glowing. Then the price will rise again. The nobles are desperate. They'll pay anything for it. Daniel didn't know why, but his hands froze over the device. He leaned slightly closer, trying to hear. They call it human male nectar, the blue alien continued. Worth? More than gold, more than diamonds, more than antimatter. It can't be faked. It must be fresh, and the source must be alive. Daniel frowned. Human, male, nectar? He'd never heard of such a thing. The words made no sense. Was it food? Medicine? Some rare chemical in human blood? Before he could think further, the reptilian alien noticed his movement. His eyes narrowed, and his forked tongue flicked out. Careful, the reptilian hissed. We have a listener. Daniel quickly looked down at his work, pretending not to notice. His heart was beating faster now. The last thing he wanted was alien trouble, but it was too late. A shadow fell over his table. Daniel looked up and saw a tall figure wearing a dark cloak. The face was hidden, but the voice that spoke was soft and feminine. You're human, she said, not as a question, but as a fact. Daniel hesitated. Yeah, so. You heard them, she said, sitting down without asking. Her eyes were a deep silver, like liquid metal, and you should know knowledge like that can make you very rich. Or very dead. Daniel gave a small laugh. I'm just a mechanic. Lady, I'm not looking for trouble. She leaned closer. And Daniel caught the scent of something sweet and strange. This isn't trouble, she whispered. It's opportunity. I know people who will pay more credits than you can imagine. All you have to do is come with me. Daniel shook his head. I'm not signing up for anything until I know what it is. Her silver eyes gleamed. You are the product, Daniel, she said softly, and the entire galaxy wants what only you can give. A cold shiver went down his spine. And if I say no? Her lips curved into a slow smile. Then someone else will take you, and trust me, they won't ask. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to get out, but curiosity was stronger. If what she said was true, then every alien in this port could be a potential buyer or a hunter. Suddenly, the bar's lights flickered, and a group of armored guards entered. Their helmets scanned the room with red beams. Daniel felt the woman's hand grip his wrist tightly. They're here for you, she said quickly. Move. Daniel had no idea what was happening, but he knew one thing: he couldn't stay here. She pulled him through the side door, into a narrow metal corridor that smelled of oil and rust. They ran past crates and broken machinery, Daniel's mind racing with questions. Where are we going? He demanded. To safety, she replied, not slowing down. And then? To the highest bidder. Daniel stopped, yanking his arm free. Highest bidder? You're selling me? She turned, her silver eyes flashing. Not selling, she said. Delivering your worth more than you can imagine. Do you know why? Daniel shook his head. No, and I'm not sure I want to know. Her smile was cold. Because human. Your kind produces something my people will kill for." Footsteps and mechanical worry echoed behind them. The guards were closing in. Daniel's stomach twisted. He didn't know what this human male Nectar was, but he knew one thing now: if he stayed here, he would never be free again. The woman took his hand again, this time with surprising strength. "Come with me, Daniel, tonight. You either become the richest man in the sector, or just another body in the gutter." Daniel's heart pounded. The noise of the guards grew louder. He didn't have time to think. In that moment, he had to decide: run with her into the unknown, or face whatever waited behind him. Daniel didn't look back. His feet moved before his mind caught up. The silver-eyed woman led him through a maze of corridors, past flickering lights and locked metal doors. The sound of boots and metal clanks followed them like a shadow. She seemed to know every turn, every shortcut, until they reached a heavy gate at the far end of a storage hall. With a press of her palm against a scanner, the door hissed open, revealing a narrow stairway going down into darkness. The air below was damp and smelled of rust. Daniel's eyes adjusted to the dim glow of strips running along the walls. He could hear voices now, not the loud chatter of the spaceport above, but low, deliberate murmurs. The woman didn't slow until they reached a second gate. This one was guarded by two massive alien figures with skin like cracked stone. They looked at Daniel for a long moment, and one of them let out a deep grunt. The gate opened, and Daniel stepped into another world. The room beyond was huge, stretching in a circle under the city, lit by hanging lamps that glowed with a pale, ghostly blue. Dozens of creatures of all shapes and sizes stood in clusters, their clothes rich, their jewelry glittering. They held glasses of glowing liquid and spoke in soft tones. The center of the room was dominated by a raised platform with a cage on it. Inside the cage was a man, human like Daniel. His face was pale, his eyes tired, but he stood straight. Two guards flanked the cage. Daniel froze. It wasn't just one cage. There were more. Lining the walls, some were empty, but others held humans, mostly men, all looking worn down. Some were young, some older, all watching. The crowd with wary eyes. Daniel felt his stomach twist. "What is this?" He whispered. The woman didn't answer. She was watching the stage as a tall alien with long curved horns stepped forward. His voice carried across the room. "Tonight, we present the rarest of all treasures, human male, healthy, strong, pure. This is not a synthetic copy, not a spliced hybrid. This is the source, and with it, the nectar flows." The crowd murmured in excitement. Some aliens leaned forward, their eyes bright. Others whispered to companions. Daniel noticed several had small, ornate vials hanging around their necks. Inside each vial was a shimmering golden liquid. The sight made his skin crawl. The auction began. The horned alien called out numbers, and the crowd responded. Each bid was higher than the last. The human in the cage stood still, silent, his hands clenched into fists. Daniel's breath quickened. It wasn't an act, this was real. These people were buying humans like rare animals. The woman leaned close to his ear. Her voice, soft but sharp. "This is your future, Daniel. They will pay more for you than anyone else here. You're unregistered, untouched by the market. Fresh, Daniel." Turned to her. "I'm not for sale." She smiled faintly. "Everything is for sale. It's just a matter of price." Before he could reply, a hand gripped his shoulder. He spun around to see a tall alien in black armor. The guard's eyes scanned his face, then nodded to the woman. "The queen has been informed. She requests the human now." Daniel felt the grip on his shoulder tighten. He glanced around, looking for a way out, but the guards here were bigger, stronger, and armed. He had no chance. The woman's hand slid to his wrist again, and she pulled him toward a side door near the platform. They passed close to the cage. The human inside looked at Daniel, his lips parting as if to speak, but no words came, only his eyes spoke of warning. Through the door was another corridor, this one lined with glowing panels. The sound of the auction faded behind them, replaced by the steady hum of machines. The woman didn't speak, and Daniel didn't ask. Every step took him deeper into a place he didn't understand. At the end of the corridor was a pair of massive golden doors carved with swirling patterns. 2 guards stood outside, their armor gleaming. They stepped aside as the doors swung open on their own. Daniel's breath caught. The room inside was like nothing he had ever seen. The walls shimmered with living crystal, light bending through them in waves. Cushions and silk drapes lay scattered across the floor, and in the center, on a throne that seemed grown from the crystal itself, sat an alien queen. Her skin was silver and flawless, her hair a cascade of liquid gold. Her eyes sharp, intelligent, and cold-fixed on Daniel the moment he entered. The woman who had brought him bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, I deliver what?" "You requested an unclaimed human male." The queen rose gracefully, her gown flowing like water. She walked toward Daniel, circling him slowly. Her gaze lingered on his face, then on his hands, as if inspecting a rare gem. Finally, she stopped in front of him. "You will serve me," she said simply. Her voice was soft, but the tone was absolute, "and in return, you will live in comfort beyond your dreams." Daniel swallowed. "And if I refuse?" The queen's smile was faint, almost kind. "Then you will be given to those less gentle. I suggest you do not test me." She turned away, already certain of his answer. The woman who had brought him gave him a small, knowing look. The golden doors closed behind them, sealing Daniel in the queen's private chamber, his fate no longer his own. Daniel stood still as the queen moved to the far side of the chamber. Her gown trailed behind her like a river of light. She waved a hand, and 2 servants entered silently. Each carried a tray, one with a bowl of thick golden liquid, the other with a small crystal vial. The scent hit Daniel first, sweet and warm, yet sharp enough to sting the back of his throat. The queen dipped one slender finger into the bowl and touched the liquid to her lips, her eyes half closed as she let the taste linger. "This," she said finally, turning toward him, "is what your kind produces without knowing, the rarest substance in the galaxy. Human male nectar. It heals, it strengthens, it extends life, and for those of my bloodline, it ensures the continuation of our reign." Daniel's stomach twisted. "And you want it from me?" The queen smiled faintly. "Not want, human require. Your body can produce what no other species can. My scientists will ensure you remain healthy and capable for many years. You will be protected, fed, and housed in luxury. But in return, you will belong to me." Daniel looked at the golden liquid in the bowl. It shimmered under the chamber's light, beautiful and unnatural. The thought that it had come from someone like him made his skin crawl. "What happens?" he asked slowly. "If I don't agree?" The queen stepped closer, her gaze sharp. "Then you will be harvested only once, and your value will die with you, a waste. But my rivals would enjoy the satisfaction of your final drop." He could tell she wasn't lying. The air between them felt heavy, like the room itself was holding its breath. The servants left quietly, leaving the queen and Daniel alone. "You think I'm just going to accept this?" Daniel said, forcing his voice to stay steady. Her silver eyes softened in a way that felt more dangerous than anger. "You will, Daniel. Because the alternative is not freedom, it is nothing." Daniel's fists tightened at his sides, his mind screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. The golden doors were sealed, the guards outside stronger than any human could fight. The queen turned away and sat back on her throne. "You may rest now. Tomorrow, the process begins. I will send For you, a guard entered and led Daniel through a side passage into a smaller room. It was lavish compared to the places he had lived before: silk sheets, soft lights, a window that looked out into the endless city below. But no matter how comfortable it was, the heavy lock on the door told him the truth. He wasn't a guest. He was property. Hours passed in restless silence. The city lights flickered through the window. Daniel sat on the bed, thinking about the man he had seen in the cage, his eyes, the warning in them. That could be him in weeks, maybe days. A faint tap on the door made him freeze. It opened slowly, and a figure slipped inside. It was not a guard, but a servant girl with pale green skin and wide, fearful eyes. She looked young, younger than Daniel had expected anyone in the Queen's court to be. "You don't know me," she whispered quickly, "but I know what's going to happen to you. I've seen it before." Daniel stood. "What do you mean?" "The Queen will keep you until you can't give any more," the girl said, glancing nervously toward the hallway, "and when that happens, you disappear. No one sees you again." Daniel felt a cold knot form in his chest. "Then I can't stay here." She shook her head. "Leaving isn't easy. The palace is locked from the inside out, and the city belongs to her. But there are ways, if you're willing to risk it." He stepped closer. "Tell me." The girl bit her lip. "There's a man in the outer district, a smuggler. He's helped others escape. But you'll have to get out of the palace first, and for that, you'll need the Queen's trust." Daniel almost laughed. "Trust? She sees me as a resource, not a person. Then make her believe otherwise." The girl said urgently, "Act loyal, act obedient. Let her think she owns you. Then, when she lowers her guard, you run." Before Daniel could reply, footsteps echoed in the hall. The girl slipped back toward the door. "I'll find you when it's safe. Don't give up, human." The door shut, leaving him in silence again. His heart pounded with a mix of fear and something else: resolve. If there was even the smallest chance to get out, he would take it. But as he lay back on the bed, he couldn't ignore one truth. The Queen wasn't just powerful, she was intelligent, cunning, and maybe even ahead of him already. If she suspected anything, his chance would be gone before it even began. The city outside glittered like 1,000 eyes watching him. And somewhere in that endless maze was the only path to freedom. Morning in the Queen's palace didn't arrive with sunlight. It came with the soft chime of hidden bells and the slow brightening of crystal walls. Daniel opened his eyes to find 2 servants already in his room. One holding fresh clothes made of soft silver fabric. The other carrying a tray with a steaming drink. "The Queen requests your presence," one said without emotion. Daniel dressed in silence. The fabric was light and cool, fitting perfectly. The drink tasted sweet, almost too sweet, he wondered. If they were drugging him, every step out of that room was a reminder he wasn't free. The guards led him back to the grand chamber. This time, the Queen didn't sit on her throne. She stood near a tall, curved window, the view stretching out over the endless sprawl of her city. The towers shimmered under an artificial dawn. "You slept well?" she asked without turning. Daniel forced a neutral tone. "As well as someone in my position can." She smiled faintly. "In time, you will learn that your position is a gift, not a prison." She gestured for him to follow, and they walked deeper into the palace until the air grew warmer and the hum of machinery became louder. They entered a chamber unlike any other Daniel had seen. The walls pulsed with soft blue light, and in the center was a reclining chair surrounded by delicate glass tubes. Containers of golden liquid floated in a slow, mesmerizing spin above. Scientists moved around silently, their eyes on their work. "This," the Queen said softly, "is where the nectar is taken. Pain is minimal. Recovery quick. You will not be harmed. If you cooperate." Daniel's eyes moved to a side room where he saw another man, human, sitting with his head bowed, his skin pale, an empty vial in the hand of a scientist nearby. The man didn't even lift his head when Daniel looked at him. The Queen's gaze followed his. That one has served well for nearly a decade. Soon his service will end, as all things must. You will replace him. Daniel fought to keep his face blank. Every part of him wanted to refuse, to lash out, to run. But the servant girl's words from the night before echoed in his mind. Mind her trust. Then, escape. He couldn't fight yet. Not here. He stepped closer to the chair, pretending to study it. And if I serve well, you'll keep me alive for a long time. Her eyes softened, as if pleased by his question. Longer than you can imagine. Daniel sat in the chair slowly, letting them believe he was willing. The scientists moved quickly. Attaching slender tubes to his arm, the process began, and a faint warmth spread through him as the machines hummed. The Queen watched without blinking. Do you feel it? That is your value flowing into history. Every drop a treasure. Every drop a bond between you and me. Daniel's vision blurred for a moment. Whether from the process or the weight of her words, he couldn't tell. He clenched his jaw. Thinking of the girl who had warned him of the cages in the auction hall, of the man who had stared at him with that silent plea. When it was over, the scientists carefully removed the tubes. A small crystal container now held a fresh portion of shimmering gold liquid. The Queen took it in her hands like a sacred relic, holding it to the light before tucking it into a silver case. You've done well, she said, her voice almost warm. Rest now, there will be more sessions, but you will be rewarded. Daniel bowed slightly. Keeping his eyes lowered, it wasn't respect, it was survival. The guards led him back through the corridors, and for the first time, he paid attention to every turn. Every hall, every possible exit. That night, in his room, he found a slip of paper under his pillow. The handwriting was messy but hurried. Tomorrow, at the second chime, the service gate will open for 10 breaths. He read it twice, feeling the weight of the risk. It had to be from the servant girl. She was giving him a chance, but 10 breaths was nothing, barely enough time to cross a single hallway without being seen. He'd have to be ready as the artificial night fell over the city. Daniel lay on the bed, staring at the crystal ceiling. The Queen thought she owned him. The scientists thought they had measured his worth. But tomorrow, he would find out if a human could outsmart the most powerful woman in the sector. And deep down, he knew if he failed, he wouldn't see another dawn. The second chime was still hours away. But Daniel's pulse hadn't slowed since he read the note. He didn't sleep, couldn't sleep. Every sound in the corridor outside made him tense. Every flicker of the crystal light above felt like a warning. When the first chime echoed through the palace, soft and musical, he was already dressed. The silver clothes they had given him blended into the pale tones of the halls. He paced, counting in his head. He had no watch, no clock, but years of working in spaceports had trained his sense of time when the second chime rang. It was like a blade cutting the silence. Daniel opened his door slowly. The hallway was empty. But he knew that wouldn't last. He moved quickly, his steps soft against the smooth floor. He remembered the path 3 turns, then a narrow side hall, then the gate. He turned the first corner and almost froze. A pair of guards walked past the far end, their boots clicking in perfect rhythm. He waited until they disappeared, then slipped forward, his breath tight in his chest. The side hall was dimmer, the crystal walls replaced with dull metal panels. The air smelled of oil and heat. This was no place for the Queen's guests. This was where the palace's hidden machinery lived. And at the end, just where the note had promised, was a service gate, low and wide, almost blending into the wall. A faint hum came from it. And through the narrow seam, he could see a sliver of darkness outside. The gate was opening. Daniel's steps quickened. He was halfway there when a shadow moved to his right. The servant girl stepped from an alcove, her eyes wide. "Go," she hissed. "You have 6 breaths left." He didn't waste time asking questions. He reached the gate, the seam widening just enough for him to slide through. Cold air hit his face, the smell of rain and metal from the streets beyond. But as he stepped out, a voice like velvet and steel called behind him. "Daniel." He turned, and the queen was there. Framed by the dim glow of the corridor, no guards, no servants, just her. Her silver gown shimmered even in the low light. "You didn't think I would notice?" she said softly, walking toward him. "The nectar you gave yesterday was pure, but it carried something else." Defiance. Daniel's heart pounded. His hands twitched toward the dark street behind him. But the way she moved, slow and certain, made him feel trapped, even in the open air. "You can run," she continued, her voice almost kind. "But the city is mine, the gates, the skies, the shadows mine. You'll find no friend here who won't sell you back to me." The servant girl stepped forward, blocking the queen's path. Her voice shook. But she didn't move aside. "He doesn't belong to you." The queen's silver eyes softened. "Child, you misunderstand. Everything here belongs to me. Even your loyalty." She looked past her, straight at Daniel. "Come back now, and I will forgive this foolishness." Daniel met her gaze and saw no anger there, only certainty. As if she already knew the choice he would make. That certainty made him step back toward the darkness. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Then you choose the harder path." The moment her voice fell silent, a sharp hiss cut through the air. Daniel spun to see 3 sleek hovercrafts rising from the lower streets, each carrying armored guards. The hum of their engines was like a swarm closing in. "Go," the servant girl shouted, shoving him toward the alley. Daniel ran, the cold night air biting at his face. The city's lower levels were a labyrinth of metal bridges, dripping pipes, and narrow streets. The sound of the hovercrafts followed him. Weaving between the towers, red beams from their scanners cut across the walls. Hunting him, he darted into a narrow maintenance tunnel, sliding under a hanging cable. The heat from the machinery inside made sweat sting his eyes. He moved as fast as he could, knowing one wrong turn could box him in. A beam of red light swept over his shoulder. He dropped low. Pressing himself into the shadow between 2 pipes, a guard's voice echoed from outside the tunnel, sharp and guttural. Then the sound of boots moved away. Daniel kept moving until the hum of the hovercrafts was faint. Ahead, he saw a faint glow tunnel's exit. Beyond it, the lights of the outer district flickered like distant stars. If he could reach it, he might find the smuggler the girl had mentioned. But the queen's words echoed in his head. This was her city. Every eye a spy. Every hand ready to sell him out. The air grew colder as he neared the end of the tunnel. But so did the feeling in his gut. Freedom was close, but so was the hunt. And he knew the queen would never let something she owned slip away without a fight. The outer district wasn't what Daniel expected. He had imagined open streets, crowds of strangers, somewhere to blend in instead. The tunnel spat him out onto a high metal walkway suspended between towering buildings. The air was colder here, the wind cutting through the narrow space like a knife. Below, the city spread in layers of neon light and shadow. Some areas glowed with market stalls and flickering signs. Others were dark and silent. Daniel knew the queen's hunters would search both. He didn't have time to enjoy the view. He needed to find the smuggler. The servant girl's instructions came back to him. Look for the red lantern, 2 levels down, knock 3 times. Wait, then knock once. Simple. But nothing in this city was ever truly simple. He followed the walkway until he found a rusted stairwell spiraling down the side of the building. His footsteps echoed in the hollow metal. Each sound felt too loud, too noticeable. When he reached the 2nd level down, the street was narrower, almost claustrophobic. The smell of smoke and fried food mixed with the stench of oil. Alien merchants sat in front of stalls, their eyes following him. Daniel kept his head down, pretending not to notice. The red lantern was exactly where the girl had said, hanging outside a small windowless building. Its light swayed gently in the wind. Daniel stepped up to the metal door and knocked 3 times. Waited, then once more. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a narrow panel slid open at eye level, revealing a pair of sharp, amber eyes. "You're late," a voice said. Low and suspicious, "Had trouble," Daniel replied, trying to keep his voice steady. The panel shut, locks clanked, and the door swung open. A tall man with gray hair and a long coat stood inside. His skin had a faint metallic sheen, not human, but close enough to pass at a glance. He stepped aside. "Get in." The interior was dim, lit only by a single lamp on a desk. Maps and data screens covered the walls. The man closed the door behind Daniel, locking it again. "You're the one she sent." The Queen's new pet. Daniel tensed. "If you know that, you know I don't want to be her anything." The man gave a short laugh. "That's the problem, she knows that too. And she's already paid for your return." Before Daniel could speak, the sound of engines rumbled outside. He moved to the small, dirty window and saw 2 black hovercrafts settling in the street. Armored guards stepped out, their weapons glinting under the lantern light. "She's fast," Daniel muttered. The smuggler grabbed a pack from the desk, "And she doesn't lose. If you want to live, follow exactly what I say." Daniel nodded. The man led him through the back of the building, down a narrow passage lined with crates. At the far end was another door, this one smaller and less guarded. The smuggler opened it to reveal a cargo lift hanging over the lower districts. "This drops you to the underlanes," the smuggler said, pulling a lever from there. "I can get you to the docks if we make it before her hunters." The lift shuddered as it descended. The wind whipped around them, carrying the sounds of the city shouts, engines, the distant hum of drones. Daniel gripped the railing, eyes scanning the shadows. Halfway down, a piercing whistle split the air. Daniel looked up to see one of the Queen's hovercrafts banking sharply toward them. Guards leaned out, aiming weapons down. The smuggler shouted, pulling Daniel flat. Energy bolts hissed past, scorching the metal. The lift groaned, one of its cables snapping under the impact. It swayed violently, dangling over the darkness below. Daniel's pulse hammered. "Where?" "Not going to make it." The smuggler's eyes were wild but focused. "We're going to jump," before Daniel could argue. The smuggler kicked open a side panel, revealing a narrow maintenance beam running to a nearby tower. It was barely wide enough for a footstep. "They won't shoot if we're this close." "To the structure," the smuggler said. Too risky. Daniel climbed out, the wind tugging at his clothes. Each step on the beam felt like balancing over an endless void. The sound of the hovercraft circling above made his skin crawl. When they reached the tower's side door, the smuggler shoved it open and pulled Daniel inside. They were in a dim service corridor, the air heavy with dust and the smell of old wiring. The smuggler shut the door behind them. "We're close now. The docks are 2 turns away." Daniel didn't relax. "She's not going to stop, is she?" The smuggler gave him a look that was part respect, part warning. "Not until she has you in her palace again or in the ground." Outside, the faint hum of engines began to fade. But Daniel knew better. The Queen wasn't losing him. She was hunting him, and she was just getting started. The docks weren't like the rest of the city. They were a sprawling maze of steel platforms hanging over an endless drop. Cargo ships hovered in place as loaders moved between them like ants. Engines rumbled, lights flashed, and the air was thick with the smell of ozone and hot metal. Daniel and the smuggler kept to the shadows, slipping between crates and stacks of coiled cables. Every few steps, Daniel glanced behind them, expecting to see silver eyes in the dark. The smuggler pointed toward a squat freighter docked at the far end. "That ship's leaving in 5 minutes. If we can get aboard, you're free." Daniel almost believed him, but then a cold voice drifted across the docks. 5 minutes is too long. Daniel, he froze. His breath caught. Slowly, he turned. The Queen stood at the edge of the loading bay. No guards, no servants, just her. Her gown shimmered like molten silver under the dock lights. Her gaze locked on him as if nothing else existed. The smuggler stepped between them. "You'll have to kill me first." The Queen's smile didn't change. "If you stand in my way, I will." Daniel's heart pounded. He could see movement behind her now 3 hovercrafts settling onto nearby platforms, armed guards pouring out. The smuggler's warning echoed in his mind. She doesn't lose. He looked at the freighter, so close yet impossibly far. One mistake, one hesitation, and the chance was gone. "Daniel," the Queen said, her voice soft but carrying across the noise of the docks. "You are worth more than the sum of your days. With me, you will be cared for. With them." She gestured toward the freighter. "You will be hunted by all who crave what you are. You will have no safe place, no rest, no allies." Her words were smooth. Too smooth, and Daniel realized something she wasn't trying to convince him. For his sake, she wanted him to walk back willingly, so she could break him without force. The smuggler's voice was low, urgent. "She's stalling. The guards are closing in. Move." Daniel's eyes stayed on the Queen as he stepped backward. Toward the freighter, she didn't follow, but her gaze sharpened like a blade. "You think you can run forever?" she asked. "Every drop you give elsewhere is a drop stolen from me. And I always take back what's mine." The smuggler grabbed Daniel's arm and pulled him into a sprint. The sound of boots and shouted orders erupted behind them. Energy. Bolts hissed through the air, striking crates and sending sparks into the dark. They ducked behind a stack of containers as a blast hit the metal. Daniel's ears rang. The smuggler shoved a small device into his hand. "Press this when we're on the ramp locks, the ship scanners for 30 seconds. They broke cover, running flat out across the final stretch. The freighter's loading ramp loomed ahead. A guard appeared from the side, raising his weapon. Daniel didn't think he threw the device at the man's chest. It detonated with a flash of light and static, dropping the guard to his knees. They charged up the ramp, the ship's engines whining as they powered for launch. The smuggler slapped a control panel, and the hatch began to close. But just before it sealed, a figure slipped through the narrowing gap. The Queen, Daniel stumbled back. She wasn't even breathing hard. Her silver eyes burned in the dim cargo bay light. "This ship is not yours," she said calmly. "Nor is your life." The smuggler raised his weapon, but she moved faster than he could aim. One flick of her hand sent him crashing into a wall. The weapon clattered across the floor. Daniel's mind raced. There was no way he could overpower her. No way he could match her speed or strength. But the vial of nectar she had taken from him during the first session flashed in his memory. He had seen her protect it like treasure. "You can have me," he said suddenly, his voice sharp. "But not what you want." She tilted her head. "Explain." He reached into his jacket and pulled out the small vial he had stolen from the lab earlier. He hadn't planned to use it yet, but now it was his only weapon. "You take me." I smashed this for the first time. Her calm cracked, her eyes narrowed, her body tense. "You wouldn't dare." Daniel stepped back toward the open cargo door, the vial held over the edge, one drop gone forever. "Remember what you said." Every drop a treasure. The ship's engines roared, shaking the floor. The Queen took one slow step forward, but Daniel threw the vial not over the edge, but hard against the far wall. It shattered, the golden liquid splashing across the metal. Her eyes widened, and in that instant of distraction, the smuggler slammed a control panel. ejecting her from the bay with a force field pulse. The last image Daniel saw was her figure vanishing into the swirling lights of the dock, her voice echoing through the closing hatch. "This isn't over, Daniel." The hatch sealed, and the freighter lifted away. The city fell away beneath them, the towers shrinking into the dark. Daniel leaned back against the wall, breathing hard. The smuggler gave a short, grim smile. "You bought yourself time," he said. "But she's right. This isn't over." Daniel looked out at the stars appearing beyond the ship's glass. Freedom was fragile, but for now, it was his.